Good evening. My name is Jen Sulkin from the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. Thank you for joining us tonight for Let's Talk, a Q&A discussion about mental health with Benjamin Rose. This program will be recorded and we will be sharing the link with you all in an email in the next couple of days. And it will also be shared on our website and in our resource library. Please feel free to share that with friends and family who could not join us today. So May is Mental Health Month, and here at Benjamin Rose, we want to help answer all of your questions about mental health, behavioral health services, and all of the supports. If you would like to ask a question to tonight's panel, you can do so in two ways. First, if you would like to talk to one of our panelists, you can do so by raising your hand using the icon on your control panel. When I call your name, you will need to unmute yourself using the unmute button, which is the red or green button up in your control panel, and then you can ask your question. If you would like to submit a question anonymously, simply type your question into the question box on the bottom of your control panel. Before we begin, I'd like to read a quick disclaimer. Benjamin Rose Behavioral Health Services staff are not physicians or psychiatrists. We cannot comment on medications, so any questions regarding that should be directed towards a licensed medical professional. If you are experiencing an emergency or having thoughts of harming yourself, please call 911 or go to your nearest emergency room. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's panelists. First, we have Tamar Cooper, Director of Behavioral Health Services at Benjamin Rose, Doug Braun, Behavioral Health Clinical Social Worker, and Kirsten Yoder, Social Worker and Group Facilitator. I'll give some time for attendees to get their questions in, but I would like to start by asking Tam to tell us a little bit about Behavioral Health Services at Benjamin Rose.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is our first effort at having a panel discussion, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do a few more. So let me tell you a little bit about our Behavioral Health Services Department. I know I'm excited about it, and I think that our staff is as well. We have a case management program where, of course, now it's COVID. Typically, we would go out into the community, into people's homes, do linkage, education, support, and advocacy for clients with a focus on people that are age 55 and over. During COVID, we do a hybrid model, which is we do some home visits to non-congregate settings as well as telehealth. And we've seen that be pretty successful. A lot of our clients have really adapted well to just having regular phone calls and telehealth visits from our case managers. We also have TBS, which is Therapeutic Behavioral Health Services. And again, that's either one-on-one visits or phone calls, advocating, educational things, linking people with their entitlements, community benefits, if you don't have insurance, if you are in need of heat, food vouchers, working with different Social Security, even linking to one of our other departments in Benjamin Rose, such as ESOP, which is a great program. That's what we would do. Now, in addition to those programs, we have social work, counseling, and psychotherapy. And that's where licensed independent social workers would talk with you about what your special issues are with mental health issues, to work with counseling on anxiety, bipolar issues, depression, any of the mental health diagnoses that you or someone you know may have received out in the community, or that our licensed independent social workers may have diagnosed you with here at our agency. Next, we offer a mental health adult day treatment program. We have really had a great success with this program. It's a 3-hour program. It runs Monday through Thursday, again, offered by phone and in person. We offer this group now at our Fair Hill location at 11890, and that's our main campus. Kirsten happens to be one of the group facilitators, and another social worker, Loretta, Regal is the other facilitator. And the program is great because it was really built on topics that were provided by the clients as well as the staff. There's a curriculum that's followed that helps with skill building, grief and loss, managing your mental health symptoms. And so clients follow through with this and they stay in the program for quite a while, because with older adults, you know, as we get older, more things happen to us. You know, we age, we have more losses, physical issues. So we're not coming in, getting better and leaving. And that's what our program offers, is the ability to stay with one counselor for quite a while in this program. And it's been very successful. So we offer that. And I left out too at the very beginning, diagnostic evaluation. So when you are thinking about, you have an issue and you're at home and you're wondering, how do I, you know, access the behavioral health services at Benjamin Rose, you would call 791-8000. That's the main number to our agency. You would ask for intake, and there's like 3 different people that will answer the phone, and you would just say, you know, I'm struggling with depression. I'm struggling getting some community entitlements, and I'd like to have a case manager. I'd like to talk to somebody. And that intake person will walk you through several questions and see if they're able to link you up. So those are just some of the programs that we have under our behavioral health services. We have licensed independent social workers. We have LSWs, licensed social workers, and we have a qualified mental health professional who knows the community benefits, Medicaid, SRS, everything like the back of her hand. So we have a very good staff and a great program.
Great, thank you, Tam. The first question that I would like someone to answer is, isolation has added to the deterioration of seniors with mild mental health issues. How do we reach out as a community to aid those?
Kirsten, would you like to take that question?
Thank you very much, Tam. Yes, I'll start off. Well, isolation, of course, has been very much increasing. There's many different ways to work on decreasing isolations of our loved ones. Reaching out by phone, of course, is always a nice one for those that are able to. Technology, as we are doing today, you know, Facebook, FaceTime, Facebook, you know, any of the modern technology that we have. Even just calling to check in, you know, with your loved ones. There's recipe exchanges, you know, and we can use Zoom, has been also a wonderful way to decrease isolation as well. But we also recognize that, you know, technology is difficult. So if there's any way to connect your loved ones with some basic technology, letter writing, getting them involved, and, you know, even remembering what activities they used to enjoy or like. See if they can reconnect with some of their peers or their friends. If they had visited senior centers or rec centers or programs, you know, reconnecting with them, seeing if they could reconnect with their coordinator to get the names and numbers. Because the one thing we do know is decreased isolation definitely builds higher self-esteem, can elevate mood, as well as, you know, just improve overall functioning. Doug or Tam, do you have any other ideas maybe to add about the isolation?
Yes, I was going to say that, you know, if you are seeing that a loved one or someone you know is really isolating themselves, is that COVID has taken more of a toll on them than as it has with many of us, you know, reach out to them and let them know that there's places where people can talk to them. You know, Benjamin Rose is in our behavioral health services is a great program. Throughout COVID, we have had constant contact with our older adults. So we've made wellness calls to different people in the community. You know, linking up with a provider, behavioral health provider, whether it's us or many of the other agencies in the county, provides an outlet for someone to be able to talk to, share their thoughts, their fears, their feelings, their needs, and that helps bring that person out. And it's vital, especially even though we think we're coming towards the end of the tunnel with COVID. We're going to start seeing this new type of issue where people have become so used to being alone and isolated that there's almost a fear, almost a resistance, a sluggishness, if you will, to want to rejoin and reclaim their lives. So we need to be on the lookout with people that we know to help encourage them to get back in. So that's, I think, a big thing that people can do to help get somebody reconnected.
Absolutely, Tam. And one more quick thought. There's also something called the Warm Line, I believe, as well as the CARES line that have both been, they were always there, but have become more prominent, with the beginning of COVID. And those can be by text or by phone. And that allows you to connect with someone 24/7 that will just sit there and talk, about anything and everything, not necessarily mental health related. Doug?
And if you need to know the number for either of those, the helplines, you can call 211. 211 works in Lake County, it works in Cuyahoga County, it works all over the place. And you can get information 24 hours a day. And I actually couldn't sleep one night. And so at 3:30 in the morning, I called them, and I didn't have to wait for anybody else, to finish with their call because I got instant service. So it's you have to time yourself right. No, but they really do a very great job with helping with resources.
That's great, Doug. And you know what? You raise an excellent point. For too long, there's been a stigma about people with mental health. Let's not talk about it. It only happens to certain people. We all experience times when we're feeling alone or scared or, just not feeling right. So anybody can call. This is something that fits for anyone and everyone, and particularly after the year that we've had. These resources are for all of us. And Doug, I really appreciate you bringing that up because I think that can help a lot of people who are listening in tonight to our show. Thank you. Next question, Jen.
Okay, so the next question we have is, what are the greatest unmet mental health needs faced by older adults?
Oh, that's a really good one. And I guess you could talk to a lot of people and we could go on and on. Unmet mental health needs for older adults. Well, I think first it would start at the federal and state level. Funding is one thing for housing and subsidized treatment for older adults, because many people, Social Security hasn't saved everybody, insurance hasn't saved anyone, and so it can be difficult to get the resources that they need. Getting medication, getting access to an adequate number of professionals, psychiatrists, social workers. One thing we found during COVID, professionals that could go into a home for medication, even for the COVID testing. It was quite a challenge to mobilize professionals to be able to go in people's homes to get tested. Now, right now in Cleveland, we're in a city area. You go out into the rural communities and it becomes even more challenging because resources are few and far between. Transportation is huge. Very few people transport agencies. So when you are older, you're already faced with mobility issues and not being able to understand or use a computer. So you may struggle with trying to set something up with RTA. That's difficult. So there's quite a few things. Doug, what do you think are some unmet mental health needs seniors?
Well, actually, one of the biggest things I see is transportation. To tag on to what you said, because in the community where I live, they had to let go two of the drivers at the senior center. So now everybody's competing for a ride to the doctor through the senior center, which means that, there's not enough buses. So I've tried to link people with the Senior Transportation Connection or with the paratransit service that RTA offers. And maybe one of the biggest blocks to people getting service is their own inability. People can sometimes be overwhelmed. If someone's depressed, you can feel like not doing anything. If someone's anxious, you can feel overwhelmed. And so a person's own mental health issue can be a block toward getting help. And that's why it can be beneficial to get a case manager who can help you. They're not going to do everything for you. What they'll do is they will give you resources and help you feel more confident, feel more empowered. And I have been on, for example, if I had someone who I had one person who wanted me to call and do everything for him. It's like, no. If I do that, then when I retire or get a different job, you're going to be stuck. So I need to help you learn how to help yourself and find resources. So in that particular instance, we figured out what he wanted to ask the doctor's office, and we wrote a list of questions. I coached him. We practiced beforehand, and then he made the call. And so that helped him increase his self-esteem. It helped him feel successful, that he was actually able to do something, which previously he felt he couldn't do. So that's part of my job, is to help people feel they can actually accomplish things.
I also think that by having a case manager, when we talk about unmet needs for older adults, being able to communicate then with a caregiver or a loved one, put someone else's mind at ease and lets them know what the straight story is, because our case managers and counselors, they're in the home. They're physically seeing that person. So they're able to communicate to son, daughter, whoever, guardian, hey, this is what's really going on. And that puts someone's mind at ease. Kirsten, do you have any thoughts on that question?
No, you and Doug answered it very, very thoroughly. I don't think there's much more I could add that hasn't already been said.
And something I just want to quick, something for the audience to know is that now Doug's been with the agency, 29 years, something like that. You've been around for a long time. He has specialized training in EMDR, CBT. He's on the crisis intervention team. He's works with first responders in Lake County, all over. Kirsten has a long history as a therapist working with kids. She was one of just a few people selected across the state to do mental health first aid training. We have people across the board in our department that have some unique background with some good skills to help the clients that pass through our doors.
Great. Well, I think our next question kind of dovetails nicely off of that last question. And the person is interested in also specifically the mental health of older adults and how either it's different or similar to that of younger adults in its manifestation and then the implications for addressing it.
Kirsten, you want to start off?
Sure. Thank you. You're right. Another great question coming right off the previous one. Well, of course, there's going to be a difference in how mental health presents in the different stages as a younger adult from an older adult, just as you would expect. And that is true, whether it is for kids into the older adults as well. So with the mental health in between a younger adult and an older adult, sometimes what I see or sometimes what I encourage and recommend is expect the unexpected. Challenge what you might think depression looks like or what anxiety looks like. What you might think, because what you think they might look like and what they actually look like could be two very different things. Like typically when someone thinks of depression, they might think of a weepy, sad, always crying. And when that could be true, sometimes it's irritability. With older adults, it might manifest itself as more physical symptoms. And, those physical symptoms could be attributed to something, could play out more physically versus mentally. And that's why it's important to be working with doctors who know a history, and where it's also different too, and kind of where I've seen this just in working with various populations is to see, oh, that's just, Aunt Betty, that's just what she does. Or they think, it's normal to be sad or depressed as an older adult. You would maybe expect it in someone younger, but it's almost like it's normal or accepted in someone older. And depression in older adults is not normal. Feelings of sadness, yes. Because in older adults, they do go through maybe some more losses and some more transition and changes in life. But depression itself, that's a medical treatable condition. But in older adults, it might play out as more physical complaints, somatic complaints. You're going to kind of really want to watch. And there's also some of the stuff you might see as mental health can also be more in Alzheimer's or dementia component, which you may not see. You can see in the younger population, but may also come up as an older population. You might see that with UTI, kind of has a component of a mental health component with that as well. So you really are going to kind of see the difference. But again, the best thing I can say is expect the unexpected, ask the questions, talk to the professionals, talk to the doctors, talk to the people. Don't be afraid to ask, because there is no silly question, right, to kind of ask. You can only find out more. And if anything, maybe Doug and Tam have seen through their experience as well some other differences in the population.
Well, I think asking the person, when you're working with an older adult, it's different than working with a younger person. Let's, think about the language and how you approach someone. Think about issues of, are they hearing impaired? Are you speaking loud enough? I think sometimes we laugh at our BHS because we all work with older people that we're really loud because we're so used to working with older people that we have to speak loudly with, but it's so important. And people in the field that work with younger adults or younger kids don't think of that. Ask somebody, what's going on? How are you feeling? What's going on? Some people will say something and some won't, but taking a look, imagine, maybe dad wants to drive and you don't want him driving anymore and he's really, really angry. Anger and depression can be almost the same thing. What's going on? All these losses. So that's another way that it presents. Doug, what do you have to say?
Well, I sort of think of mental health in older adults as being similar to what younger folks have, except there's an extra layer of stuff put on top of that. For example, someone who's 70 years old now was born in 1950. So that person, we have to take into account what their lifespan has shown them. For example, I was born in 1961. That I have no concept of when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I mean, I was like 6 months old. And so, but older people than me would have remembered that. And I've seen the effects of the Great Depression coming out in the children of those people who went through the Depression. because you never had enough. Don't throw away that string. Don't get rid of the bags. They could be useful, the boxes, and that can be part of some hoarding issues, but also it could just be their anxiety coming out. So we have to think about what had happened in the world as they were becoming adults and growing up.
You know, you raise a good point, Doug. It's not only about the age and what life experience they had, but it's also really important to look at where was this person raised, what their culture was. We have a number of people, older adults that were raised in the South and have moved back up to Cleveland. So, you know, for us, taking a really good history and getting to know that person helps us in building a relationship with a client and providing better treatment. And that's, you know, a working relationship between a professional and a client is critical to good outcomes and good care. And I think that that's something that we do a good job at.
And if I may add, kind of piggybacking off of the great points that Doug and Tana said, I know something I also consider too, and a difference between maybe a younger adult versus an older adult is the language I use, as well as some of the terms, because I'm very respectful of, again, Doug, like you said, the time a person grew up, right, or the time they were born, or what their experiences are. They may have grown up in a time when mental health wasn't talked about, or when there was even more of a stigma than there is now, or depending on their viewpoint. So again, I go into it, maybe they're not going to be honest, even if I do ask them straight out, or they're not going to know the symptoms, or they're not going to recognize it. They're going to be afraid to tell me because of a lot of the myths that are out there as well. And that's what you might see in the different generations, as someone a little younger might have had time to debunk the myths, to learn more, and not be as afraid of the systems, where someone who was a little older before, you know, the institutionalization and some of those early times, they might still have some very definite ideas of what's going to happen, or fears, you know, should they open up and talk about their symptoms.
And that actually tags on to one experience I had. I was called in because the referral was made because there was an older lady, 104 years old, who had very limited ability to move around, and they worried that maybe she shouldn't be living where she was. Well, I got in the situation. It was an elderly African-American woman, 104, and at the time I was like a 35-year-old white guy. I'm a 60-year-old white guy. But in her lifetime, she had seen the experiments done on African-American men in the syphilis scandal that the U.S. government was involved with. And so she had learned that you can't always trust the system. And I was part of the system. After going through all my questions, she had church people who came by every single day. The church people were not getting tired. They actually were rallying around this woman. Now, if they had been getting tired, I probably would have tried to get some other services in there. But she had people there 24 hours a day. They were from her church, and they weren't going to give up on her. And, all the time during the interview, she was laying in bed, staring straight up at the ceiling because she was afraid of me. And she also didn't want to look into my eyes because she had been taught, you don't look into a white man's eyes because that's disrespectful. So at the end of this interview, I said, okay, well, you have this, you have this, you have this, and this. All these things are supporting you. Do you really think you need my help? And she said, no, sir. But at that time, all of the worry melted away. And she looked over and said, thank you. Mm-hmm. She had everything she needed. She was not in an unsafe situation. She was probably going to die in 3 months anyways, and I wanted her life to be happy. and I told them call back if there's any issues. But that worked for her.
See, to me, I think that that's the mark of a good clinician or of good treatment. You met the client where she was at. Someone else might have come in and said, "Oh, you must have this and you must have that," and really damaged the person. You know, you looked at the client as an individual and where she was coming from. You assessed it for safety. You saw that the community rallied around her, and you said, "Look, if you need something else, I'm here." And to me, that's the best medicine, best therapy that you could give. And that's what I like about what we do is our staff is well trained in working with the older population and very sensitive to their needs. So we don't force ourselves or our treatment on people. We establish a working relationship with who comes to us. And that's key with an older adult because, oftentimes they're working with someone who's younger than them. So, we're showing respect, which is very, very important.
Okay, thank you all. I'd like to move on because we do have some more questions coming through. And we do have someone raising their hand who would like to ask a question. So Paul, I have unmuted you or sent you a request to unmute if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this. And I appreciate all of you giving your time at the end of a busy day. One of the things that I've noticed, though, during the pandemic at its highest level of crises, food insecurity for many Americans grew dramatically. Certainly older adults were among the most impacted. In as much as so many of them deal with food insecurity without a pandemic. What is the Rose Institute doing to address hunger needs and to improve food availability among your older client base?
That's a very good question. And Benjamin Rose, our mission is to try and meet all the needs that the older adults are experiencing. Now, food insecurity, when the pandemic hit and a lot of our Rose centers had to close down, like Gunning, which are the senior centers, Gunning, Lakeshore, King Kennedy, there were a couple others, which were often sites where seniors would go and get their meals. The organizers and the senior administrators made sure that they gathered together and were delivering meals to the homes for the people that typically came to the center, and also made sure that they gave a couple of extra meals for the weekend. So they had that covered. They also, I think they've partnered with Western Reserve to try and get additional meals to send out to other adults that our case managers and other people in the agency who had said that they were struggling with getting food, and so that would be delivered to their home. We're still doing food delivery. There some of the different programs at Benjamin Rose participated in food pantries, and not only even with the food, but even other essentials that we had just free distribution of. At the beginning, everybody wanted toilet paper. We had toilet paper that we provided, toothpaste, cleaning supplies, masks. But Benjamin Rose was right there and continued to be right there, recognizing that food is important, and it still is through Rose Centers. Doug or Kirsten, did either of you have something to do with that? Oh, also, we had notes, because it fits in with the isolation. A number of staff were recruited to do wellness calls because, again, that senior center was the only contact that some of these older adults had. So people that weren't even our clients. We were making regular calls to, how are you doing? What's going on? What do you need?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do for you? Or little notes just to cheer somebody up. So that's where we were at. Doug and Kirsten, anything?
Well, yeah. I was one of the people recruited to do the wellness calls, and I still had my other clients, but I found space, some time to make my phone calls, and I would check with people, see how they were. I think one person needed to have a doctor referral, so I relayed that back to the wellness center people, and they took care of that. Several others talked about how they really, the only food they ever got was what Benjamin Rose dropped off. And in that case, I said, well, the food bank at the time, the Cleveland Food Bank actually was having the U.S. Marines, I think, were giving deliveries of boxes of food. Now, one box of food, how much is in there? How long is it going to last? Does it have too much salt? Well, it was something. And so I was able to link those people with the extra deliveries of food from the food bank because I was assigned to help out with these calls. So I think that was really a good use of my time.
And it was volunteering, Doug and Kirsten, because Kirsten was involved with this. It wasn't just like, okay, you're assigned, you have to do it. Our VP and COO, Mary Marita, put out the word, and people stepped up and said, yeah, I want to do this. So, Kirsten, any thoughts on your experience with this, with the food distribution?
Yeah, absolutely. I happened to notice one day when I was at our headquarters, just kind of stopping in, that our center was one of the main locations for the Western Reserve Area on Aging food program that we partnered with. So we were a main distribution center as part of that partnership. As for one of them, and I was also part of the calling that Doug had talked about, right, doing the wellness calls. And so I was able to also link to various, food pantries in the community who were also working, and the home delivered meals program that kept it going. And even if they weren't a client of Benjamin Rose or in the Rose centers, which is, Tam had mentioned, our senior centers, right, our activities program, they still reached out and provided them meals through the home delivered meals program. They added extra routes that weren't necessarily in their routes. They added extra drivers that were, kind of there. And they were still working. And these were drivers who volunteered their time. These were Benjamin Rose staff who weren't in the home delivered meals programs that drove their own cars. These were our Rose Centers workers who were on the front lines, and we did everything we can, to give the extra food. We did fundraising, or, offered, we put it out there, for anybody who would donate to the program.
And I didn't realize, I didn't realize we were the location where Western Reserve was assembling all these meals. And I walked into the office one day and I saw like 500 empty boxes. And I called Tam and said, "Are we moving? Is there something going on that I don't know?" So I'm really glad.
Well, some of that was Western Reserve's own stuff, but we were helping so that it could be a distribution center. Yeah, some of that was Western Reserve stuff, but we were all, our CEO made sure that we could be a location that this could happen, so older adults could get food. So I hope that answers your question, Paul.
Okay, thank you all.
All right, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So the next question we have is, we all get stressed. How do we differentiate this between mental health disorder and just general stress?
Well, I'll start off on part of that. Yes, we all do get stressed because, what is life without stress, right? I guess one of the big things to look at is this level of stress interfering with your daily living? And how long is this stressful event happening. You're feeling stressed. Are you still able to go to work and maintain your composure and do your regular duties? Or you're an older adult and you're home and you have a caretaker, and are you finding that you're getting continually frustrated and having outbursts, or you're just sitting around crying all the time? One or two outbursts, one or two times that you're feeling sad, no, but 2 weeks or more, or constantly being upset, stress that's so overwhelming that you feel physically ill quite often, or you're having thoughts of, hurting yourself, or that things would be better off, or hurting someone else. That's when you start to know that something's not right. Mental disorder, mental health, it's just issues. And there's no shame going to talk to a doctor or a psychiatrist to say, this is what's going on. Is this normal? Because I think Doug said one time when we were all talking, the great thing is you don't have to figure out whether this is a problem. There's people that you can talk to that can let you know whether or not this is a problem. So if something's going on in your life, call up a community mental health center and say, I need to talk to somebody to see whether or not, I do need some help. Doug or Kirsten, anything you want to add to that?
Or even go see your doctor and talk to her or him, because they'll be able to refer you to somebody.
Right.
And just to retell back to what Tam said, kind of really the only difference between mental health and kind of normal stress, sadness, or worry is the impact it has on the daily functioning of someone, such as changes in eating, sleeping, work habits, thinking, and how long it lasts. Normally, again, as Tam had said, that 2 weeks or longer. Again, it depends how much it's affecting the daily activities. And again, as Doug had said, I think my colleagues have summed it up beautifully, kind of the difference between it. Always ask the questions, go to the doctor. It's okay to not be okay. We've seen that hashtag, I think, for the last year and a half
That's
now,
great.
if I'm not mistaken.
That's good.
Okay, great advice. Thank you, guys. We have another raised hand. So Marie, I just went and sent you an unmute request. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Okay, thank you. I had a question with regard to like doctor referrals or referrals for evaluations. I am a guardian and I have an individual in a nursing home who basically has some mental health issues, but is competent enough to make her needs known and things like that, and believes that she doesn't need a guardian, even though she's had one for 4 years now, and would like an independent evaluation of her mental health in order to take it to the court, basically, to show them that, I found an independent doctor who says X, Y, and Z. Maybe he will say X, Y, or she or he will say X, Y, and Z, that she doesn't need a guardian, maybe not. The problem I'm having is all of the doctors in her life will not do an evaluation that indicates that she may be able to live on her own without a guardian. So, I called like UH neurology, but they're like, well, we don't do that without a referral. And I can't find a doctor to do that. Is that something that I could, call Benjamin Rose and say, I'm looking for a doctor who could do an evaluation on, my ward?
This is just a suggestion. The Foley Center works with a lot of older adults, and I think they might be able to make a recommendation.
Who is that again? I'm sorry.
The Foley, Foley, Foley Center in Cleveland Heights.
Okay.
Make a recommendation if they couldn't do an evaluation themselves. We wouldn't do one for something like that where she already has a guardian and it's going into the courts. I think you need something more substantial.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
just more
Foley
concerned
said-
about, did you have any doctors that maybe you could refer me to or refer her to? Something along those lines I
Yeah.
was kind of looking at. I mean, I know it's much
That's
more
my
involved
suggestion.
because the
Doug, do
court's
you have
involved.
somebody? Yeah, Doug,
Pardon?
do you have someone? I'm asking Doug if he has somebody he was thinking of. You're on mute, Doug.
Okay, now I'm not. I just hooked two people up with Signature Health, and I'm wondering because they need a psychiatrist, and the Signature Health person, the intake was a 30-minute phone call, and the next contact is supposed to be with a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist visit can be in person or over the phone, and in this case, I would recommend in person. So Signature Health might be a good place to go,
Okay.
since they're not directly affiliated with University Hospitals or Cleveland Clinic or Metro.
And they
Okay.
have their own
That's what I
psychiatrist. Good
tried.
point.
Yeah, at least she could do like a Zoom. I mean, she's completely incapacitated. I mean, 24 hours wheelchair, needs is a two-person assist, things like that. So it's hard for her to move places, which is another reason why she is in a nursing home. But, I want her to see that I'm trying to help her
Mm-hmm.
reach her goals, even though it might not medically be possible. So this is very helpful because I would like her to get an independent.
The nursing home doesn't have the nursing home that she's at doesn't have a contract with a psychiatrist that could.
Yeah, but he's already done an evaluation, which is going to say that she needs 24-hour nursing care. And I'd like to get her away from the quote unquote nursing home staff because of the fact that it's like, well, of course they're going to say that. I'm at their facility. So I appreciate giving me the suggestion of Foley and Signature. That certainly places for me to start. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Our next question is there anything you can do to prevent mental health problems?
Kirsten.
May I ask by you mean present? Is there anything you can do to present? Are you meaning by presenting
Sorry, I said
to?
prevent, not present. Prevent with a V.
Oh, prevent.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, you can't necessarily prevent mental health, as you necessarily can't prevent the flu, right? Or getting sick. However, I think there's warning signs you can look for, or warning signs you can be aware of, such as becoming familiar with some of the signs of depression or anxiety, which are two of the most common mental health disorders that we see, especially in aging and older adults. You could talk to your doctor if you have any concerns or notice any changes, right? You can do some self-care. You can reach out to NAMI or some peer support groups, right? Where you could talk to other people, who are maybe experiencing the same stuff you are. So the best thing I could say to prevent, if you will, is be aware, get the facts, get the information. Don't be afraid to ask the questions, right? Get to the professionals, talk to the people who are trained and know. Don't try to diagnose yourself. That's a problem I ran into early on, right? Especially thinking, hey, I'm a therapist. No, right? When it came to myself, truly not. So yeah, you can definitely start there. Just be aware, notice any changes, because if mental health is present, chances are it's been present for a while, or it's been there, even if it hasn't shown itself, but sometimes it can show itself later, or an event can trigger it. So just be aware of any changes and don't be afraid to talk to somebody about them. Again, it's okay to not be okay. Tam or Doug, any other ideas?
I would say too, you know, if a doctor prescribes medication, take the medication and take it consistently. Something that happens a lot for any number of people, old or young, you start taking the psychotropic meds, you start to feel better and you think, oh, I'm cured. You know, it's gone. And you get off the pills and for a little while you feel better and you think, oh, I don't need the meds. It's gone. I don't have a mental illness anymore. And then boom, it's back. You know, it's just like managing diabetes, you know, where you have to take insulin or any of these other, you know, heart medication, cholesterol. So yeah, there's really nothing to prevent it, but to be on the lookout for it. And once you have, if there's been a diagnosis, to do what your doctor recommends and to just, you know, this is you. This is a part of you. It's nothing bad. It's not to blame. It's not a curse. You'd be surprised that so many people have this, and it's successful. It's just a part of them. Doug, you were going to say something, and I cut you off.
Yes, you did, but now you are allowing me to talk. Okay, thanks. There are a couple of things I was thinking about. Some mental health problems are more insidious than well, they all can have horrible consequences, but things like schizophrenia can be really devastating because it usually comes on when a person is just entering college or just getting married or starting a family, and everything falls apart. Depression can make a person not want to be immobilized, basically, as can anxiety and some other things. So it is important to take medications that the doctor recommends. Now, you may have side effects you don't like. When I first started on Prozac, I had horrible side effects. However, I said, are these side effects worse than what I'm going through right now? And I said, no. What I was going through at the time was worse than the side effects. And so, and there was, when you said some people don't take their medications because they think they're cured, well, I actually was, one of my depression medications ran out and I couldn't get a refill and I felt all angry and I never bothered to refill it. And after about 6 months, I realized that was not a good thing. So, so I called up the psychiatrist and got fixed. Yeah, so it is important to take your problems with the medications to the doctor or to the psychiatrist. You need to trust them. And if you don't feel you can trust them, you need to get another one.
If you are living a life where you are feeling sad, you're anxious, you're angry, or you are uncomfortable, that's not normal. See somebody, talk to somebody. You know, life is meant to be lived happy. So don't drag it out. Go find out what's going on, because there is a way to treat this so you can live a happy, healthy, independent lifestyle. And we're here to help as part of that.
Exactly. And I was just going to add, Tam, that was beautifully said. I was just going to add, mental health may not be curable. It might not be preventable, but it is definitely treatable and manageable without a doubt.
Well said. Thank you. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. And Doug and Tam, I think this is a good question for you because I know you give a presentation on this. So we're coming out of COVID. What is that going to look like for mental health?
Oh, wow. It's, you know, when this first took over a year ago, I mean, we thought it'd be a couple weeks, maybe a month, and here it is, more than a year, 500,000 plus deaths. It's, everybody's going to need some mental health treatment. I mean, because it just changed our lives dramatically. I think young adults and kids in school are really going to need a lot of mental health treatment because they were robbed of the opportunity to learn socialization, conflict resolution. And then we look at young adults and, you know, dating, going to college, experiencing the how to work with others. We've been taken out of that force. You know, telework is great until you realize what parts you miss. Some of the biggest things we need is to learn how to work in society, how to cooperate with other people. And then there's seniors that have already, you know, so many of them lost the only link they had with people out in the community, the senior centers, the meals. So I think we're going to see a big surge in people diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, people that are not going to be agoraphobic, but are just going to want to just stay isolated. So, you know, there's just going to be a huge push for it. And we should all be very sensitive to the fact that, you know, given what 2020 threw at us, that's okay. You know, you survived. And I don't want to go back to the life I had. I want to reclaim a new life. And I think that for all of us, that's what we should look at. Not settle for what we had, but let's go out and get something a heck of a lot better because we deserve it. Your neighbor deserves it. Every older adult who has gone down through the years, that has all this wisdom that can give to us, you know, we need to support them as a community. And so let's reach out and help our neighbors and the people that we love. Doug, you're on mute.
Well, since Tam made a good point, should we keep going or how are we on time?
You've got a couple more minutes.
We do? Oh, in that case, I can talk. One thing I noticed with all this COVID stuff was we got used to being locked up. We got used to not being in contact with other people. We got used to wearing the masks when we did go out. We got used to all these things. And so there was sort of an unhappy stability. It was stable. We knew what was expected. We knew what we were going to deal with. But now, since things are getting better, I've actually noticed some people getting more stressed. And that's because things are not happening fast enough. They want to be able to be with their families. They want to be able to do this. They want to go on picnics. They want to, all these things we want to do. And it's natural for us to want to do that because we're social beings. And it's not happening fast enough. And that can be frustrating for a lot of people. So I've actually had a couple clients that we've been talking about that with. And so ultimately, I think what Tam said, not just reclaiming your old life, but actually claiming a new one, a better life, a better way of living. I think that's a really good idea.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, we are just at 7 o'clock. So I want to thank everyone for attending today. And thank you to our expert panelists. You provided some great insight. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we will be sending a recording of this email over the next couple of days. So please be on the lookout for that. And have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.